Most Americans have never heard her name, but in the brutal winter of 1777, a coded letter arrived in General George Washington's camp that changed the fate of the Revolution. Its message was short, alarming, and written in a cipher so advanced that even modern intelligence experts still admire it. What history nearly erased, and what Washington never revealed, is that the author of that life-saving message wasn't a soldier, spy, or officer. It was a 24-year-old Quaker woman living quietly in British-occupied Philadelphia, and she altered the future of the United States before the nation even existed. When British forces marched into Philadelphia in 1777, they turned the city into a suffocating cage of suspicion. Redcoat patrols walked the streets daily, taking notes on every household. Anyone could be accused of treason. Taverns filled with spies, loyalists, and informants. Trapped among the frightened civilians was Nancy Smith, the daughter of a modest Quaker printer. Her life seemed ordinary on the surface, but her father had educated her far beyond what was typical for young women of the time. She knew 4 languages, devoured books on mathematics, and had an unusual fascination with cryptography, the art of hidden messages. Her talent for ciphers was nothing more than a hobby, until the war demanded she use it. One cold October night, Nancy's cousin, who worked as a servant inside the governor's mansion, overheard senior British officers discussing a secret winter plan. General Howe intended to strike the starving, freezing Continental Army at Valley Forge in a surprise attack on December 24th. A blow like that would end the revolution in a single day. Worse still, the cousin had smuggled out a dangerous document, a hand-drawn map detailing the exact routes the British planned to use. Nancy understood instantly that possessing such a map meant death if discovered, yet destroying it would doom Washington's army. So she and her cousin hid in the basement of the print shop, studying the paper by candlelight. The map was cleverly disguised as a diagram of merchant districts, but Nancy noticed patterns the British officers never expected anyone to decipher. The street lines actually represented troop movements, and the small notations were river fords and cavalry staging points. It was brilliant camouflage. Nancy realized that even if someone managed to smuggle the map out of the city, British soldiers would search every traveler, every cart, every pocket. She needed a way to hide the information in plain sight. She needed a cipher the British would never recognize. She spent hours rewriting the British battle plan into a coded message disguised as a pious Quaker hymn. Every third word contained a deliberate pattern of letters, which, when extracted and converted using a substitution table she invented, revealed the true message. It was elegant, subtle, and nearly impossible to detect. But now came the riskiest part: delivering it. British checkpoints around Philadelphia ripped apart wagons and packages daily. Anyone traveling south or west was interrogated. Nancy needed someone innocent, someone the British would never suspect, someone who didn't even know they were carrying a secret. The next morning, she carefully placed the coded hymn inside a bundle of religious pamphlets belonging to a customer named Elias Turner, a mild, middle-aged Quaker who traveled outside the city each week selling wool. Elias avoided political discussions with the devotion of a monk. He had no idea he was about to become the courier of one of the most important intelligence messages of the entire war. The British waved him through the gates without even glancing at his cart. A few hours later, he reached a sympathetic farmhouse outside the city where rebels quietly collected and relayed information. From there, the letter changed hands several times until it finally reached an officer whose name history would remember, Benjamin Tallmadge. Tallmadge, Washington's chief of intelligence and the founder of the Culper Ring, recognized immediately that the letter was not the work of any spy he knew. The structure was unusual, the logic intricate, the writer obviously brilliant. He decoded it in less than an hour, then sprinted into the freezing night toward Valley Forge. Washington read the decoded message slowly, then a second time, then a third. The British planned to strike the camp in a three-pronged assault on Christmas Eve. If the attack came, the Americans would not survive. But with advanced warning, Washington could prepare. He immediately ordered fortifications doubled, artillery shifted, and defensive trenches dug in the most vulnerable approach routes. What history rarely mentions, however, is that Washington also deliberately made the camp look weaker than usual. He wanted to lure the British into attacking. He wanted them confident, careless, and committed, because this time he was ready. On the early morning of December 24th, British troops marched quietly toward Valley Forge, expecting a slaughter. Instead, they stopped cold when they saw large American fortifications, fresh winter defenses, and an army far better positioned than their intelligence had predicted. The sudden change terrified them. How had Washington learned their exact plan? A direct assault now promised disaster. After a heated argument between officers, the British canceled the attack. The strike that was supposed to end the revolution never happened. Valley Forge survived, and the war continued. But no one in Washington's camp knew the identity of the person who had saved them. Tallmadge wrote a report praising the unknown coder, a person of remarkable intellect residing surely within the occupied city. Washington prepared a reward in secret, hoping the mysterious patriot would come forward. Nancy never did. She kept her secret for the rest of her life. After the British abandoned Philadelphia in 1778, she returned to printing pamphlets, married a carpenter, raised children, and lived quietly. She never sought recognition. She never admitted what she had done. She died at 61, her heroism unrecorded. Her letter, mislabeled as an anonymous Quaker hymn, sat unnoticed in the Continental Army archives until 1914. That year, a historian named Lucy McCall found it while studying Revolutionary War documents. At first, she thought it was simply a religious lyric sheet. Only after noticing the repeating structure did she realize it contained a cipher. It took her 3 months to decode. The translation stunned experts at the Library of Congress. It matched British military records perfectly. It detailed the canceled December attack. It proved that someone had saved Washington's army at a moment when America's future hung by a thread. McCall searched through print shop logs, Quaker records, and family papers until she found a telling reference in a British officer's letter. Suspicious activity near Smith's Quaker print house. Girl too educated for her place. That girl was Nancy, a young woman whose education, curiosity, and quiet bravery had steered the course of American history. Today, students learn about the suffering at Valley Forge, the drilling mastery of Baron von Steuben, and the loyalty of Lafayette. But almost no one learns about the woman whose cipher stopped the British from crushing the revolution. She carried no musket, wore no uniform, and served in no regiment. She used the tools she had, ink, logic, and courage, and in doing so saved an entire army. Her cipher, still preserved at the Library of Congress, is now recognized as one of the earliest and most sophisticated American civilian codes ever used in wartime. Historians call it the most important Revolutionary War message almost nobody knows about. And every Christmas Eve, a small number of scholars quietly remember that the United States might have died before it was born, were it not for a young woman with an ink-stained hand and a brilliant mind.